All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 27th, 2024 meeting of the New London Planning Board. We will go ahead and get started. Just a quick note, we are recording this meeting, so you are on camera. That will be available on the website at some point. So first off, we're going to start with a voluntary lot merger for RH Webb Forest Preserve, located at Morgan Hill Road, Great Brook Log Road, and Lakeshore Drive. Yep, come on up, and if you can just state your name and make sure the light is green on the mic.
Yes, hi, Van Webb. I'm the
Can't tell, is it on?
manager of the RH Webb Forest Preserve. Last
Can't
fall,
tell.
I was lucky enough to acquire.
Van, I'm not sure your microphone's.
Is it green?
Oh, that's better.
Thank you.
Yes, Van Webb. I'm the manager of the RH Webb Forest Preserve. Last fall, I was able to buy a parcel in the northeast portion of what you see up there, another 27 acres. I own the other 4. The family has owned it since the 60s. And sort of land conservation is one of the things we do. And so I would like to merge these 4 lots into one lot and then permanently protect them. 3 of the lots have conservation easements on them right now. And the 4th one, if I get to merge them, would also have a conservation easement on it. So that's my goal.
Thanks. Do you want to talk about town? No issue?
Nope, there's no voluntaries or.
Okay.
Or simple.
Yep. Are there any questions from the board on this one? What about from the public? Questions or comments? Okay. Do you want to read finding facts? Or we don't need to worry about it?
Right, since
Yeah.
it's a voluntary lot merger, the resulting size is over 1,000 acres, which far exceeds the minimum lot size in the forest conservation, and it would still be served by the access points that each one of the lots already has.
Okay, thanks, Adam. That just felt too easy is all. Great. Is there a, hearing no other questions or concerns, is there a motion from the board?
I move to approve the lot merger for the 4 lots.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Thanks.
To appoint Emily to be Mary Ann's, sorry.
Emily, can you sit in for Mary Ann tonight? Great, thanks. As I asked for the role, I thought that. Great.
So Van, you are all set. We will sign the paperwork tonight. Cara is on vacation this week, but when she gets back next week, she will file with the county, and then once their paperwork is done, everything should be merged. And if it hits before April 1st, which it's likely that it will, then it'll be reflected in this coming tax year.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
And next up, we were going to be talking about a sign permit in the at Colby Sawyer College, but they've asked that we postpone to the next meeting on the 26th. So on March 26th. So the next item on our agenda will be the Gilman Trust and Secret Cove at Davis Hill Road, talk about lot line adjustments.
I need to recuse myself, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you, Jeremy.
And I'm back. Jeremy Bonin, representing the Gilman Trust and owner of Lot 37. What we are looking at is the same 4-property subdivision, annexing property from 2 of the prior lots into the lot that was sold prior, and then adjusting the lot line between 2 of the others. So the best plan to use is the one that Adam has. Do we have a laser pointer? Sorry. Because I can trace them, it might be easier.
I don't know if we do.
Yeah, if you can just speak really close, thanks.
Nope, okay. So if we look at the map, depending on which screen you're looking at, there's a central lot that sort of looks like a twisted bow tie. To either side of it is the lot coming from the adjacent properties being annexed in to this lot. Oh. I'll point this way.
It doesn't work on the TVs, I don't think, but it should work on the screen.
So if we follow, now I got too many things to do here. If we follow this lot line, that's the original lot line. To the right of it, the hatched area is being annexed in, or is proposed to be annexed in to this lot. And if we follow this lot line, that was the original subdivision lot line. And this area here is being annexed into this. And then the adjacent property, the lot line is being adjusted to bring both lots into conformance with the town requirement for acreage. So it's pretty straightforward. The reasons behind it is the purchaser of this lot would like to purchase additional acreage from the two abutting lots, which happen to be the same owners, same family, just so that she has additional acreage and privacy. So it's pretty straightforward until we get to a few pages down, because we're proposing to move the cistern from its approved location to a new location. And then also, Will Davis from Horizons Engineering is here, so when we start to talk about the cistern, if there's specific engineering questions or grading questions, he can answer that. Adam, can you either zoom in to the two cistern locations, or, there we go. So part of the subdivision application was to put a cistern in, and this is for fire suppression purposes, so it's for the fire department to tap into, so they have water in case there's fire in the general area, not specifically just for these properties, but any property on Davis Hill. The original location was on, there we go, it's back, was on basically sort of a virgin piece of property. So there was no break in the wall, the fieldstone wall that was there. There was no driveway, no culvert, no anything. The new property owner, in trying to keep the road as intact as possible, is proposing to move it to this location here, which is, if you're familiar with Davis Hill, where those two big stone columns and the gate are. It's the existing driveway that leads to this driveway that I'm tracing with the laser. In this instance, the cistern is to the right, or page right, of this driveway. In the other instance, the cistern was to the left, page left of the driveway. If you're familiar with the road, this is uphill. It heads downhill for its entirety until way down here. So a couple of advantages of moving the cistern to a new location is we will actually be digging into the hill to place the cistern, as opposed to mounding up the cistern location. So as the cistern is dug into the ground, it has to have a couple feet of coverage so that it doesn't freeze. But in this case, where it was proposed, as the grade slopes downhill and the fire trucks still need access from it, from the driveway that's there, it actually would look kind of like a septic system where it would be mounded up and much more visible. Also in that location, the wall that's there is lower and it's a little tumbled and fallen apart. In this location, if you're familiar with the site, the wall is actually much higher than the adjacent grade next to it, and it's in very good condition. And because we're uphill from the driveway, the cistern itself will be down, so it is much less visible in this instance than where it was down here. The cistern design for both is exactly the same area of impact, because it's the exact same cistern, which is specified by the amount of gallons required by the fire department. If we scroll a couple pages down, Adam, to the cistern itself, I think it's maybe 3 pages down. One more. All right, one more.
It's here, right?
So that's the system design. You can see the driveway that comes in, the two piers that are going to have to move so that a fire truck access works. These dotted rectangles are the cisterns that are underground. But if you see that point there and that point there, and I believe this one here, those are all the pipes that stick out of the cistern. One is a fill, one is a vent, the other is a water level check. Those are all required elements of the fire cistern so that the fire department can use it, check it, maintain it. Can we go to the next one? One more again, sorry. And then these are a little tough to see on this screen, but these are the sections. If you can zoom in on the left. There you go, perfect. These pipes stick up about 4 feet from the tank itself, but grade is up 2 feet. So these pipes are really only sticking up about 2 feet above grade. Is it possible to go to the photos that I sent? There we go. So we went out into the field for both locations. If you take a look at this one, this is the original location. You can tell what the locations are. They're labeled in the lower left of the slide. This is the original location. Way back there, where the arrow is pointing, is where the vent pipe is in the middle of the cistern itself. Up here is a blown up image of it, and it's still pretty difficult to see. However, grade-wise, this is almost 3 feet up in the air for this pipe because the system is mounded above where it would be. These arrows are horizontal to the plane, so that's how high up above the wall, which is somewhat visible but buried in snow here. But that's how high up the pipe will be in this location. Can we go to the next picture? This is just walking down the road. That's the same pipe location. You can see where the wall is. This is the telephone pole, gives you a good indicator. That stake right there is where the driveway to come into the old location is. This is a blow up of it. You can see where the stake is on the pipe. We can go to one more. This is the proposed location. So this is if you're standing exactly perpendicular to the wall from Davis Hill. This is standing eye level, and the top of the pipe is actually right there, and the only reason you can see it is there's one stone missing in the wall. You can actually see it right there. So it is much less visible in this location. You can't actually see it at all if you're uphill, up the road, that is. Can we go to the next slide? This is it, and there's the stone column. That's the entrance. You can see the pipe that's in there, and it's less, because there's snow, it's less than 1 foot off the ground in its current state. Here it is zoomed in. And then one more, I actually walked into the property. You can see the stake that's here, and you can see the location. It's 1 foot up above grade that's there. So the proposed location is much less visible than the original location. And again, the reason to change it is so that we don't have to cut a hole in the fieldstone wall on Davis Hill where there isn't going to be a driveway. There's no proposed driveway there. We don't have to put a culvert in, and we don't have to take all those trees down for no particular reason. We can do it in this location. Can we go back to the original application on the last page for the planting plan? In the original application, we spoke with Chief Lyon, and in lieu of putting big yellow bollards or red bollards so nobody runs into it, he said it was okay to put stones. So we're going to use natural field stones. This driveway, I don't know if everybody knows, but a lot of the stone that was harvested on site is actually from a small granite quarry that's down here. So there's a lot of free granite directly from the site. We're going to take some of the granite blocks, put the granite blocks in where the posts are so that the plows or anybody coming into the driveway can't hit the standpipes that are on the cistern itself. So it'll look natural. And all of these circles and plants are landscape plan. If we scroll down a little bit more, we're proposing actually to landscape both sides of the area because it's going to be impacted from construction. And if we scroll down one more page, the list of plantings is here. I won't read all of it, but most of it's serviceberry, blueberry, dogwood. It's all local native plants, and there's 200 plants proposed. Just to cover that area so that it doesn't look like a septic field or a cistern. So that is the proposal. I can take questions. If they're technical, I'm going to defer to Will, though.
Thanks, Jeremy. What questions do we have from the board?
Will, could you walk through each one of the prospective driveway locations, understanding that they're not all intended to be built, but where they are and what the characteristics of them would be?
Sure. If you want to go back to the plan and profile, yeah.
Do you want to start here?
Sure. Let's see, how do we work this thing? Okay. Sure. So this is kind of a site plan overview that shows the driveways. One of them is proposed right here, coming down, tying into the existing drive. One is shown here, and then the third one here. So if you want to go to the profile, I can kind of step you through that. Essentially, they conform with your regulations in terms of profile slope. So the steepest sections are maximum of 15%, and we've shown on the plans, conceptual grading that would be required to build a driveway like this. So it takes into account the impact of that grading, and we've stayed out of steep slopes with these concepts. So, and these are intended to show how you could build a driveway if they did decide, basically to comply with the regulations. Does that answer the questions, or?
Specifically, there was one that mentioned a bridge, I believe, on the
Yep.
steeper lot. Could
So,
you explain that one? Let me
Go
see.
back up. Yep,
It's
right,
here,
right on that one.
Yep.
That's the one. So right in here, it's pretty hard to see on this plan, but there's a section in this area where the slopes that meet the definition of steep slopes in New London are kind of encroaching on the grading that would be required for the driveway, so we weren't able to fit it through that area. So the idea was a bridge could be constructed to go over those steep slopes. And that has been looked at preliminarily by a bridge contractor, and they felt that was feasible. Rhett, what's that?
That's the only proposed one to meet regulation.
Right. Yeah, the proposed, what were you trying, I'm sorry.
And the proposed driveways are only because the ordinance requires that it be proved that a driveway could be installed. Right now, there is no proposal for any new driveways. So because the two page left-hand lots are the same owner, they're still going to share the same driveway that's there. The new owner is going to share the driveway with the landlocked property. So there's really actually no new driveway cuts being proposed. So the driveways that are indicated here are strictly to meet the zoning ordinance requirements of being able to prove that that a driveway is feasible. In this case, engineered.
Jeremy or Will, I'm not sure which, but could one of you discuss what potential use of the new proposed larger lot would be?
So the proposed larger lot right now actually has no use planned in the near future. The purchaser of the property is working with I just drew a blank, the New Hampshire Cooperative, did I get that right? The UNH.
Cooperative Extension, UNH Cooperative Extension.
Cooperative Extension for forestry management on the property. The property itself historically dates back quite a ways with receiving quite a lot of damage during the hurricane. So it's an interesting property from that perspective because it's growing back different species. I'm wandering into information that I don't know 100%, but the new owner is working with them. They plan to do studies, and they're also proposing to plant indigenous plants on the property and watch them over the course of the next, I believe it's 20 years, to see how they work in the different succession of forestry growing in New Hampshire as it pertains to climate change too. But right now, there is no proposed use change to the property. I mean, it's a zoned residential. It doesn't have a residence, and there isn't one planned in the anytime near future. They do want to put a dock in so that they can access the property from another parcel that they own on the lake, but that's it for the moment.
So I did meet with the department heads and specifically with the fire chief regarding the potential for the relocation of the cistern, as was approved on the subdivision plan a year ago. There's no technical reason from the fire chief's perspective that these two cisterns would be looked at differently. They would function very similarly. The sight lines for egress would be very similar, and so he was comfortable with either location. And the Public Works Director did not have any concerns, project-wide cistern or change of lot lines.
Jeremy, I'm not an expert on driveways. This driveway extends down to the lower area closer to the water, is that correct?
The one that Will was just speaking about. Whoops. Back page up, I think. This one here. Whoa. There you go. Stop. That one there, Paul.
I thought it was the other. I thought it was the other one. I'm sorry, but
This one. Yep.
my only question is, what is our obligation in terms of looking at a proposed driveway here? If they went to build it, it would come back to us or to the state, or?
So they would file for a driveway permit with the town that's signed by the Public Works Director, the Fire Chief, and myself. And Will has used those regulations to lay out these driveways that, assuming he's willing to put his stamp on it, that they conform. There's not a requirement that a driveway be able to access every portion of a property, but that there is, the ability to site a driveway on the site.
Yeah, I was, especially with respect to the so-called bridge. I conceptually don't have that in my mind too well. But does someone oversee that in terms of the building or the design, or?
So the plans would be part of the driveway permit application,
Okay.
Assuming that the bridge plans would include the stamp of a bridge engineer, and then that would all be submitted with the application. And then for something like this, there would typically be a site visit with the engineers, the property owners, and the department heads.
But we're not approving these driveways in.
Correct.
Okay.
Nope, that's a
Thank you.
separate process.
Thanks, Paul. Other questions from the board? Yep, Joe.
Adam, for driveways that might be built in the future, is there any specifications in the rules for what driveway has to be made out of? Does it have to be concrete, blacktop, or just dirt?
So yes, there are specifications in there. The apron must be paved, but the length of the driveway does not need to be paved. Paved on town unpaved roads. This is a dirt road, so.
Other questions from the board? Okay, do we have questions from the public? if you just want to come up and just say your name, and I think Mike should still be green. Thank you.
Scoot this around. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Caroline Leonard. I'm an attorney with Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell, and I have the pleasure tonight of appearing on behalf of a group of neighbors on Davis Hill Road who are abutters to the proposed plan that you just heard presented. They are Matt Bruss, Jennifer Bruss, Patricia Goodlin, Ann Nancy Solodar, Arthur John Solodar, Elizabeth Warner, Charles Warner, Harry Hedison, and Amy Hedison. On behalf of my clients, I want to put their objection to the proposed cistern location, and I'd also like to reserve a few minutes of my time at the end if they would like to add anything further. I want to take the board back to 2022, which is when this original major subdivision was approved for the Gilmans. As the minutes from 2022 reveal, the Gilmans originally owned about 60 acres, and I'm rounding up just a touch, that they wanted to subdivide into these 4 lots, 3 of which are the lakefront lots. After a site visit, a lot of discussion with neighbors, input from the fire chief, this planning board approved that major subdivision. In the minutes, the fire chief noted that the cistern needed to be as uphill as possible. And what was really important, I think, is that that April 4th, 2022 Planning Board Notice of Decision approved the major subdivision with 6 conditions, and they all related to the cistern. But what I think is most important for the board to focus on tonight is the input level provided. At the time that this was originally done, there was a lot of input from the neighbors. This site was really carefully discussed, evaluated, considered. And I guess what I'm having a hard time with tonight is why we're just going to jump to a different site without that same level of consideration. So our objections are focused on really 6 areas, and I'm going to list them in order. The new site, and I know we saw some pictures this evening. It was a little bit tricky to tell, but if approved, it looks like the newer site has less of a tree buffer than the originally proposed site. If the board moves forward with the approval of the new cistern location, and I know the applicant has indicated that they wish to replant indigenous plants and things to that effect, we'd ask that that be included as a condition of approval, and also perhaps adding a set timeline for that work. This was something else that jumped out at me. This approval with this condition of the cistern being installed was a condition imposed in 2022, and here we are in March, basically, of 2024. So that's number 1, this tree buffer issue. Number 2, if you look at the road of Davis Hill, and I know you guys are all familiar with Davis Hill, it's pretty narrow, but the new site is actually at a slightly narrower location on Davis Hill than the prior one. And again, I urge you to, maybe take a site visit, look at the difference in the distinction between the 2 cistern locations. This is really important because of my 3rd reason. The structures on the opposite side of Davis Hill at the new location are much, much closer to the new cistern location than the original one. So for example, there's an outbuilding and a home that are set quite close to the, I'm going to try to put into this. If you look at, sorry, let me turn around. Testing my eyesight here. Oh gosh, here we go. So let me see here. Here we are. So the new site is here. The old site is here. Do I have that right? No. Sorry, Mike. This is very hard for me to read so far away. I'm going to move.
You can come forward if you want to hold your mic, if that's
This is
helpful.
the new site.
Thank you. I really can't read that far away. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So new. And then
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So this outbuilding and this home, as you can see, they're quite close to the edge of the roadway. So the cistern is just a hop, skip, and a jump right over here. While the cistern old location is at the same parallel, if you will, if you go across the street, you can't even see the house mapped on the other side because it's set so much further back. There's a big distinction between this distance and this distance. Thank you for bearing with me with my eyesight.
Sure.
The other thing that I'm not totally clear on, and perhaps the engineers could shed a little bit more light on this, is it appears that the area of disturbance for the new cistern location is going to be bigger than in the former cistern location. Again, I'm not an engineer, so I defer to the engineers on that, but I did want to make sure that we double-checked that. We talked about the home distance. I really can't emphasize this enough. The first location was the result of a substantial discussion among all the parties involved. The planning board conducted a site visit. They had multiple meetings on this issue. We went through this already, and the old site was agreed on. Now here we are, and we're talking about a brand-new site without that level of input. You know, the new owner, Secret Cove LLC, was aware of this condition when they purchased. It's specifically referenced in their deed. It's also specifically referenced on the recorded plan that's on record with the Merrimack County. We also see that there's an easement agreement for that shared driveway that was mentioned earlier for the Secret Cove owner. All of these tie back to the conditioned indicated in the recorded plan of subdivision. The level of input really for the original location should be afforded great deference. You're getting my theme. I'll stop hammering it. But on behalf of the Brust family, the Davis Hill Realty Trust, and the Hedisons, we respectfully request that you deny petitioner's request for the new cistern location and leave it at the originally approved location, or alternatively, continue the discussion and postpone your vote tonight pending a site visit and after you have a chance to really get input from all those involved. If my clients have anything to add, I'd ask that they weigh in. If none, we rest, but I will defer to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Harry Hedison, 91 Davis Hill Road. I'm the abutter that is on the northeast side of the parcel in question here. So I had some questions about the plans. There were certainly, I think there were 10 plans, a lot of fine print, and sometimes difficult to understand what each of the keys and lines meant. But I refer to sheet C1.1. If you could page to that. Right, that's it. And you see up in the upper section across the road, there's a boxed area that references C2.1. So if we could move to that, but if you notice that boxed area, the lower right-hand corner of that actually is on my property to the east. So if you could go to section or sheet C2.1, please. In the key, it references a proposed limit of disturbance. And I believe that dotted line that shows the limit of disturbance goes from the northwest to the southeast, if you will, to the top of the north compass indicator, crossing our property line onto our property line. So I have a question about that, certainly. If that area of disturbance is required for the new cistern, it kind of questions the viability of that location without encroaching on my property. I also happened to go down to my property in that general area the other day, and I noticed that somebody had flagged trees that are on my property as well. So I'm not sure who went onto the property and flagged the trees and for what purpose. So I'd like to get some clarity around that. What does the area of disturbance really mean? What kind of disturbance will take place there or could take place? And B, why is it on, the abutter's property? that make sense? So if someone could shed some light on that, I'd appreciate it.
I can take that one if you like. Okay. So there is a proposed limit of disturbance line on the legend, but that doesn't actually show up on this sheet. It was, I think, in reference to other sheets, but this line type right here is, I think, what you're referring to, right? Basically, a limit of disturbance line isn't shown on this sheet. So this line here is the limit of ground survey versus LiDAR topography. And essentially, the limit of disturbance would be at the edge of these topo lines where these contours tie in. So it's limited to basically right in here, be the limit of disturbance.
What is that line that's running from northwest to southeast? It looks a lot like the limit of disturbance.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah, when you have a question, I'm not to be a pain, but if you can just come up and use the mic, only because it's hard to hear for the recording, but we guys can share it. So yeah, Will, if you can answer
I can
that.
just restate. The question was, I think, what is this line here, which is dashed and looks similar to the, is that correct? Right, so that's a soils survey line. So if you see these 379B and 380C are the soil types. So that's just a delineation line between the two soil types.
So,
Yep, you're just talking to the mic. Thank you.
all right. So the limit of disturbance is actually, even though there's a key there for it, it's not shown on this plan? That's correct. Yeah. So can a plan be developed that will show the limit of disturbance? Because as I said, the plan may say one thing, but my property has some trees tagged, and I don't know where those came from. I assume they came from the same tags that were on the proposed area where the cistern is, because they're all the same ribbons, if you will. So I'm just trying to get an understanding of what's actually happening. And also, what does it mean in terms of the disturbance? What kind of disturbance is allowed in that area of disturbance?
So, I mean, to clarify, the limit of disturbance is where these contours, the proposed contours tie into existing. We could certainly add that to a plan, but that's basically implied by grading plans is where the proposed stuff ties into existing. In terms of the flagging, I'm not sure. I think it might be the boundary line flagging you might be seeing potentially.
No.
Okay.
It's haphazard on.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. No, it's not. It appears to be, variable, not in a line of any sort, on various trees, including a very large pine tree that's on my property.
So I don't know about the trees, but I will contact the owner about the flag trees on your property. The limit of disturbance, as Will said, really is just where the contours end right here, which is not near your property line. But if the board were willing, and if this were to move forward, it would be fine to condition that Horizons provide a limit of disturbance plan to the board. For the most part, it would basically just trace that line right there. But if you want to condition that, that's fine. Also, prior, I forgot to add that the bond that's being held to replace the culvert on Davis Hill is still planned, and that should be conditioned as well, that the proposed client is looking to pick up and do that work that was originally going to be done in the other location, even though if it's approved in the new location, it wouldn't be required. So I just wanted to add that in there that I forgot. Anything else? Or yep.
Again, I'm not trying to be difficult, but this is the development team, or at least a good part of it. I'm assuming everybody's informed. And again, there are trees that are marked that are in the area down by my property line and on my property. I'm just trying to understand what they're marked for. I assume they're marked for some reason.
And as I said, I'll contact the owner about the marked trees, but it's not part of this.
Thank you.
So is it okay if I address a lot of the comments by
Sure.
the attorney?
Yep.
I don't know if the planning board remembers, but one of the first items was the location, and I think the first thing that was mentioned is the more uphill the better. The proposed location is more uphill, and it was even argued in the planning board meeting, so if we probably go back to the minutes, we'll see that there was an argument to place it where we actually are proposing to place it now, because that's where Chief Lyon wanted it. However, the now deceased Nicholas Gilman did not want it on his property at all, because that area has to be deeded to the town so that they have access to maintenance, and he didn't want that on his property. So that is actually how we ended up with the prior location. It was at the insistence of the prior owner. So that's how the old one got where it went. I'm not contesting that there was a lot of discussions about it, but it ended up not on his property because he didn't want it on his property. Timeline, Adam can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the timeline said that the cistern has to go in before any residence is put in. There was,
Correct. We have a bond that we would exercise for, before the building permits, and we required that we had the bond before we can issue any building permits on any of the subdivided parcels.
so to that point, when the original owner, Mr. Nicholas Gilman, passed away and the family took over the property, they waited on putting the cistern in just for this reason. So that's why we are where we are 2 years from now. Narrow versus wide, the right-of-way on Davis Hill is actually the same width. The road sort of wobbles between the right-of-way. So, the road is the same width and the right-of-way is the same width. The location of the road within the right-of-way may differ a little bit by a couple of feet, but for the most part, the actual width of what is Davis Hill right-of-way and the road itself remains the same. The next point, the structures are closer. That is absolutely true, but it's also countered by the fact that for the most part, this is invisible. The pipes are about 1 foot to 1.5 feet above grade behind a wall that's about 3 feet. So, we're not talking about a massive structure. The other thing is that the application, when you look at it, the deeded area is exactly the same area, so this is not more impact than the other. It is exactly to the 1/10 of a foot, the same area, because it's a deeded area that's going to the town. Yes, there's more landscaping proposed because that area right now is an entrance and they want to plant and have more native plants there. So yes, there will be more impact, but it's actually plantings. So I'm not sure where the complaint is there. Chief Lyon. And again, I think for the most part, this is a change for the better. I understand that the prior process was a bit longer, but all in all, it's one less culvert, one less driveway, one less hole in the wall, and exactly the same size footprint for the cistern, just in a different location, in a preferable location to the fire chief, who would be the primary user of it. Other than that, I think that addresses most of the points. Phil, did you have anything? No. Okay. So,
Okay.
that's my response to those.
Thanks, Jeremy. From the board, I'm curious, the idea had been raised, given the complexity of this issue, if there's interest in a site visit. I didn't know what the feeling of the board was. Anybody? Yeah, please.
I think it's really important that we take our time and get out there, take a good look at it, and figure it out. Davis Hill Road is a scenic road,
Right.
number one, and I think that it's really important to figure out what's really going to work there and work with everyone who is concerned, make it right.
Yep, thanks, Emily. Are there any other comments from the board on this?
Yeah, a site visit is, we should probably do that.
Yep.
When the snow's gone. So we can see what's going on.
Yeah. Given the last couple days, the snow could be gone pretty soon.
Yeah, soon.
Yeah. What's that?
We closed the public comment.
Not yet. I just wanted to sort of throw that out there.
So, waiting for the snow. I mean, we can go out there and we can have a site visit, but we're really talking about something that's about 1.5 feet above the grade line. And I can put a larger stake out there that would represent the pipes, but we're basically talking about an entire system that's below ground. I mean, in the last application, we brought up pictures of cisterns that were everywhere in the town of New London. Many of them, have since grown over. Several of them have big red bollards in front of them. We're not doing the big red bollards. The reason I ask is that the annexation obviously is a transaction, and we're pushing this transaction, from an engineering standpoint and an aesthetic standpoint. The engineer has, addressed that it's basically the same cistern, just in a different location. The photos indicate that it's uphill and it's actually less visible. So waiting months just, it just doesn't necessarily seem fair, but.
Yep, I hear your point,
that's my
Jeremy.
point.
I actually think we could, given that we didn't have much snow this winter in general, that we could probably do it sooner than later. But I do think it's important that we go out and take a look.
Yeah. I want to see the proximity of the houses that are across the street from this, so we can get an idea of where the location is.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Go ahead,
think we need a compelling reason to change something that was done 2 years ago, and the buyer bought the property the way it was to change it. And now maybe it's a compelling reason for a couple of people who live across the street, but I'm not sure if you keep going down the hill towards the end of the Davis Hill Road, people at that end can actually see the difference at all. But we need to take a look.
As far as timing goes, we do not meet for our first March meeting because of town meeting. Voting is that night in here. So our next scheduled meeting would be on the 26th of March. So we would have some flexibility in the intervening weeks to schedule something. It might be kind of nice to have the site visit out of the way before town meeting
Yep.
gets a little crazy and people are busy.
Yeah, I'd given this some thought as well, and I was maybe going to just throw a date out there for the board of the 7th, which would be, what is that, next Thursday? I don't know if that would work for folks. We could try maybe, before it gets dark, although it's getting later, staying later, longer, maybe like a 4 o'clock or something like that. I don't know if that works for folks and for the applicant. No. So just to be clear, I'm sorry, just the site visit. So our next meeting will be on the 26th of March, but we figured just to sort of get that out of the way, it would be nice to be able to do that. And then we also have town meeting coming up, so just to sort of have it in our, I guess, just off the list, if nothing else.
Does 4 o'clock on the 7th
Yeah.
work for
Does that work for folks, 4 o'clock on the 7th? On Thursday, the 7th?
7.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, do you want?
So we have a stake with a flag on it. What else could we put out there to help illustrate this for everybody? Is there anything else other than that? We can't duplicate the mound that's going to show up on the proposed location. Well, actually, maybe we could. Maybe that would help, that the abutters would actually see that there's basically a septic field that's going to be put in.
Sure. I mean, presumably you could put
A couple
grade
stakes
stakes
with
or
some
something.
grade
but,
stakes with lines
um,
between it.
If you have any of the, like similar piping or anything that was cut to a similar size where you could almost mock it up, that may be helpful to visualize what something would look like in either spot.
We could do that.
Anything else from board members that you can think of that would be helpful?
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that, you got that as well, right? Yeah.
I think Bruce Cirillo has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, sir, I didn't see him. Come on up.
don't know what that direction is, but we live directly beside the lot, the Secret Cove lot that's now being expanded. And so I have a question and then a comment. So my question is, you asked earlier what the use of the Secret Cove lot was going to be, and you heard conservation and UNH and all that. No one asked what's the use of this now new combined lot that has the art studio and now the boat area. What's that going to be used for? I actually sent an email to Mrs. Gillen, who we've had a very friendly relationship over the last 20 years, and her, I think, son-in-law, Chris, and Chris acknowledged he was going to get back to me, never did, so I guess I have to ask you here. Do we know what the use is?
So we have a pending building permit to put a 800, I think it's 880 square foot addition onto the art studio that would house 2 bedrooms and the kitchen that goes along with that.
Okay. And since I split time between here and my home down in Boston, there's been talk, and I asked specifically about a wedding venue in the art studio. Do we know anything about that? And I know it doesn't necessarily mean you can't approve the change in lot line, but let's begin with the end in mind. Remember, we've had other situations where you approve the original lot, then they apply for hardship, and millionaires get hardship when they sell land, apparently, for a driveway that was through steep slope, and now this driveway is not going, it's conceivably possible to build these driveways, but then my other question is, I don't have the right language, but the topography, the elevations, has that been measured by anybody? Was that measured by you, or was that the Gilmans provided that information to you for the original lot? Have you done the same? We surveyed the property. So you have elevation?
Can you guys just make
Will,
sure
can
you're
you
having
come
the
up?
conversation
Sorry,
on the
thanks.
mic? Sorry. And Bruce, is that mic on? Is it green?
No, It's red.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. So the answer is yes, you
We did survey, yes.
Okay, okay. Because I know you have a lot of free granite that you're going to have on the street but you'll also have some free granite as you blast in those driveways. So back to the use, does that matter at all in this discussion?
Though it doesn't, necessarily matter as far as a lot line adjustment goes, I can assure you that a wedding venue is not an approved use
Right.
of that site. The architectural plan, and I don't know if Jeremy wants to speak to that plan, but it does not. It shows it as a single-family residential dwelling on that site.
And so that
Not a
cistern
sizable-
that
Not a
has to be built?
sizable addition. It's a 800 square foot addition.
Yeah. And the driveway that's going to get down there is not a steep slope issue, I understand. It's feasible.
And they don't, my understanding is there is no actual plan to install that driveway. They would improve the existing driveway that accesses the art studio, but as part of this process, they have to prove that each lot has the ability to have its own driveway.
I understand. But
Okay.
tactically, tactically, get permission, move ahead, ask for permission again later with site of hardship. I just want to make sure that, that pattern does not continue. And that, obviously, you're all aware of that. And, I don't want to minimize the cistern location because that's also very important. But the rest of the use thing, and, I'll leave it at that. But thank you, guys.
Thanks.
So to clarify, the 2 lots are not being combined. There's still 2 lots, and they're still sharing the driveway that they share now, the art studio and the main house, just to clarify that. So it's still 2 lots. It's just they're adjusting the lot line between the 2 of them, but it's still 2 lots. There's no proposed change of use from the Gilman family themselves. That's this one here. Can you go to the first plan? So it's still 1 lot here, and 1 lot here. So they're not merging them. It's just the old lot line is in a different place.
I have the mic, so I can't.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's my understanding that the art studio will now have the commercial boathouse that they rent out slips. That'll be part of they'll be together now in this reconfiguration. They weren't before.
Correct.
Okay, so what I'm saying is they're aggregating some prime stuff, a nice piece of house and a nice, 6 or 8 berth boathouse, and there's a reason for that. So,
The reason is that when they take this property here, the other lot doesn't meet the 4-acre minimum anymore, or it doesn't meet the acreage minimum without adjusting the lot line so that they're both equal. Also, they're trying to keep both of the lots above 12 so that they can keep portions of the lots in use. So it's basically to try to even out these two lots in their acreage when they take this piece of it away. If that makes sense.
That makes great sense, and what also makes great sense is to understand what the usage is, and so far we don't really is anyone here representing besides you guys? Yeah, so are they or are they not planning to do something in a commercial sense with, they can't, so there is no wedding venue coming?
Share the mic, guys. Sorry.
They can't do it.
I know they can't, but are they going to try?
Are you going to speed home tonight? I mean, you're predicting the future.
I probably will, actually, but yeah. Okay. So I just don't want to wake up to celebrate
I
good
can't,
times.
I'm sorry, I can't tell you what they're going to do.
Okay.
So there's no proposed change.
Yeah, so we're going to do the site visit on March 7th at 4 o'clock. And so just a reminder, the site visit, the planning board, the planning board will be there. The public is welcome to attend, but during the actual site visit, we ask that the public hold their questions until the following public hearing. The reason for that is so that we can get everything on the record. So it will be a little bit of a gap in time between then and when we have the hearing, so bring a notepad or jot a note in your phone, and we can just make sure we get your questions answered when we're in a room like this where everyone can be mic'd.
So then what we would be looking for is a motion to schedule the site visit for March 7th at...
Sorry. Hi, Jen Ross, 156 Davis Hill Road. Can we get a rendering of the mound that is being referred to with the old cistern? Because that is the first time we have heard that, and it was never mentioned in minutes.
Yep, that can be done. Thanks. Just, let us finish and then we can take more questions. But, so we're going to, can you say that again, the 7th?
Yes.
We just need a motion.
I would say once the motion is done, we're not sure why that crashed, sorry. Yes, so the site visit would be March 7th, 4 o'clock, and then a continuation of the public hearing portion on the 26th of March, 6:30 PM, Whipple Hall.
Okay, so once we do this motion, I'd like to then take questions at the next meeting, so we don't need to continue this now, but again, we would meet a week from Thursday at 4 o'clock. Is there a motion to that? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, abstaining? Okay, thank you very much. Is it pertaining to this? I mean, is it a tactical question or? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Patricia Goodland, my and my two older sisters have a summer house on Davis Hill at 192. Following up with what Jen said about the first time we heard anything about a mound for the old site, I think it would be helpful to the neighbors in particular, not only to have the site visit, which we appreciate you're deciding to do, but if there could be, in effect, artists' renderings of visually what both site would look like, it'd be a lot clearer to us, I think, if that might be a possibility at all. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have, Jeremy had indicated that they're going to try to mock up the site to some degree to look, to make it clearer as to what it would look like. Great. What else do we have?
So just to be clear, we can do engineered cross sections that show the grade, but renderings is a little tough.
Yeah, but I think that I'm comfortable with mock-ups on the site for when the site
We can do
visit
that
is there.
too. Yep. Okay. And perhaps bringing cross sections that are full-scale printed so that, it's not necessarily looking at the smaller inset, that might be helpful.
Okay, thanks, everybody. We're going to move on to the next item. Anybody who doesn't want to stay for that, you're welcome to leave if you don't mind doing so quietly so we can move on. We appreciate it, and we will see those who are concerned about this on the 7th. Okay, so next on our agenda, we have the subdivision annexation for the Oler family.
Just to introduce myself, I'm Jonathan Oler. Clayton Platt is the expert here. The short story is we needed to take and separate the house from the other 100 acres of woodlot so that we can get the squirrel started on the conservation easement. And my mom wanted my brother Peter, who has picked up a landlocked little 5-acre piece of land years ago, to have enough acreage that it can be in current use. So she gave me another 5 or 6 acres and some access. That's Clayton's got it from there.
Great, thank you. So do you want to just kind of walk through, Clayton, what the plan is?
Sure, I could try it. Is it on? I gotta hold it. So it is about 115 acres altogether. Existing farmhouse, old farmhouse with a septic over here. It is encompassed by White Brook and Red Brook. I think we're not planning any changes to the house or any changes to the property there. I think it's, the zoning is such that there's setbacks from both brooks, and it's kind of, would have to go to the zoning board. As Peter mentioned, as Johnny mentioned, his brother owns a parcel of land here. I think it's around 6 acres. An older lot. I think somebody else owned it before he did, and he acquired it. And we're proposing to annex parcel A to that, so it totals, I think, a little over 11 acres. We have topography, probably more I think the next plan might be a little more detailed. And there is should be another one in there. Yeah, there we go. There. Yeah, that shows the annexation parcel there. There was a little discrepancy if you scroll down a little bit. There was a little discrepancy in the deed there and the understanding of where the corner was. So this parcel this is actually a stone pile that everyone thought the corner was at. But when I surveyed it and when Colin Brown surveyed it, we were about 20 feet off of it. So this piece does include just a little sliver that comes down to the original corner here to kind of clean that all up. And I believe, they're already underway with Osmond Sargent. I think they voted to accept the easement. Once we get this done and some of the other details done. So like I said, there's really no change in use, really no plans to develop anything. It's just getting one piece of land in current use and subdividing out the house with 5+ acres.
Okay, thanks, Clayton.
Yeah. I met with the department heads earlier today. Nobody had any objections to the proposal.
Thanks, Adam. Are there questions from the board? What about from the public? Questions, comments?
Tim.
Sir, can you come up? I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a pain, but it's just, we need to record it. Yep. Just introduce, say your name, please.
Makes Jen's life easier when she's doing our minutes.
Malcolm Wayne, resident of Slope and Shore. Just, is the 5-acre lot uphill or downhill from the current house?
It's around the current house. It encompasses the current house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't impede going down the hill?
Clayton, can you use the mic when you talk? Sorry, thanks.
It is, I guess I'd say it's downhill and uphill of the current house, so it's about equidistant, both sides.
So point to me where the lot is exactly.
The house is here.
The existing house.
Yeah, the existing house. The lot runs kind of along stone walls and.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments from the public?
Hi, Janice Ritter, resident of Slope and Shore, and we are in a butter. I'm just curious, is there going to be a house built on that new 11 acres that's being proposed?
John can probably answer this best, but I believe conservation is the,
That's not planned. It's a landlocked piece. It has no road frontage. I don't think it's buildable, but I don't know the details of the interstate highway right-of-way that Clayton's got planned into it, but no, that's yeah.
and I think John shared with me earlier that the objective and the size was to get it above the current use minimum, correct? So.
I guess I wouldn't say it would never be built on, but it will not be part of the conservation easement. The conservation easement will just be on the 105 acres left around both parcels.
Tim, just a question.
Yeah.
I know that there's, I think it was a lumber road or something that goes up there. Is that the right-of-way that you're talking about?
Yeah, there's a general description of a right-of-way to the original parcel, and it would run along this Woods Road.
Okay.
Pretty much the property right here. And that's kind of identified for the easement too, so that they know that that's an access.
I see it, but I didn't know it was the same one.
No. It accesses most all the property, actually, as it roads continue up.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments? And then from the board, anything else? Okay, is there a motion?
Let me do the finding of
Oh, I'm
facts.
sorry.
There's no fire.
I got ahead of myself.
So the new lot will exceed the minimum of 2 acres in the R2 zone. It exceeds the minimum of the 150 feet of frontage. I believe the 105-acre piece will be left with 200 plus feet, and I think it was close to 600 feet on the house lot. And the existing landlocked lot does not become more non-conforming. It is non-conforming in its landlocked nature now, and that does not change.
Thanks, Adam. Sorry for that. Now, is there a motion from the board?
I move to approve the subdivision and annexation of the Oler property, Oler Family Trust property.
Okay, moved and seconded. Are all in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys. So I would say that maybe recognize Jen. Is this a good time to say we're having a transition and who's doing them? She's a new employee. Introduce her. Does that work? Okay. Okay. So as you'll see on the agenda, the review of the minutes next. So I did want to just introduce our new recording secretary and town employee that you will see in the front office, Jen Sweet. Jen is on her second day with us, so we're throwing her right into the mix of all of it. So we will we are very thankful that we had Trina for as long as we did, but she has decided not to do minutes anymore. So she's still wrapping up some that are that we are waiting on, and then we will be transitioning to Jen joining us every two Tuesdays of the month. So thanks for being willing to do it, Jen.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, and thanks for doing the work. We appreciate it. Okay, we have public comment now, so I will just ask if there's comment from someone about something that's not on the agenda. Anybody? Rich?
I thought you were going to discuss approving the minutes or something like that ahead of time, but given that, I guess, does the January 11th meeting minutes reflect that it was stated that the state would not allow us to exclude mobile/manufactured homes from being used as detached ADUs, and that was an incorrect statement?
I
So, Rich, as I've discussed with you, I totally understand that I did make an incorrect statement. That doesn't change the fact that I made the statement. I am not sure off the top of my head if it is captured in the minutes. I don't have them in front of me. So, typically when we learn of something that was incorrect, we try not to include it within the minutes because we don't want to perpetuate something that we now know is incorrect. But honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head how it stands with the January 11th minutes. Minutes are a summary of a meeting. They are not a verbatim transcript. And so, it's not necessarily required that every piece that is said be included in the minutes.
Okay, so I did state it in the January 23rd meeting. Was it part of the minutes for the January 23rd meeting?
So I do not have those in front of me right now, Rich, so I'm sorry I can't answer. I can get back to you.
Okay. So we're all kind of results of our experiences, and where I come from, which I think is not at all unique, but in the high-tech industry, when there's an error, there's something they call it like a postmortem or root cause analysis, or to be able to learn and try to improve going forward. And when they do that, one of the things that's extremely like a major rule is you never blame a person. You go and look at the process and you try to learn, can the process be improved? So I guess I'm trying to understand, how could this not have been known before January 11th?
You mean about the
I mean,
manufactured homes, you're saying?
Right, that manufactured / mobile homes, and of course mobile homes was dead last in the survey for the master plan. So it's pretty clear what New Londoners think of mobile homes. And here it didn't even get discussed when the amendments were being created, that this was an option to be able to exclude mobile homes. Right. And so it would be, is there anything that can be learned from this experience? To me, I don't know, I found it pretty quickly. I wasn't actually looking to find anything about this specifically. I was just trying to learn about ADUs, did a search, looked like the document guidelines on ADUs for New Hampshire would be an interesting thing to learn, and it was mentioned multiple times. And of course, this isn't the only document that states this. So I would think it would be, I have to admit, it would be required reading for everybody on the planning board to have at least seen the guidelines for ADUs in New Hampshire, because this is a big change for people to suddenly get another full-size house added to the neighbor's yard. And here, mobile homes will really stick out like a sore thumb. So I'm trying to understand what's the process when you all discuss major changes like this? Do you not actually see and pursue information about what the state has on ADUs or whatever it is? Is there nothing to be learned out of this?
So I can't speak for anyone else on the board, but just speaking for myself, I wouldn't necessarily characterize the changes that we're proposing as major. I think adding an ADU that's detached while we already allow attached with a cap of 1,250 square feet is a change. I wouldn't necessarily think it's major. And as I talked to you about separately outside of the meeting, I think that because we allow manufactured homes in most zones in the town other than in R1, institutional, and the commercial zone, we already allow these structures as a primary residence, and we don't have many of them, and there are many instances in the sort of toolkit of trying to add diversity in housing where manufactured homes are actually a good thing, or they're at least a good option to have. And so with the problem, I think that we would face as a board, again, this is just my opinion, but if we were to try to say, as a blanket statement, no manufactured homes at all, I think we're potentially eliminating a lot of good housing options in certain cases. I understand your objection to sort of the I guess, aesthetically questionable mobile homes. I understand that that's a concern. We don't have, I think we have one in town? Yeah, we have one in town now. It's my opinion that this wouldn't be a major change if the detached ADU proposal were to pass. So but as far as then the other question you asked about the board trying to look at what the state regs are, I mean, I think we all try to, as volunteers, to do our best to, do our homework and try to read up on things like that. It's something that I just haven't given much thought to because I don't share the same concern that you do that manufactured homes are a problem. I think, again, potentially they're an asset depending on the type that they are. I'd given you the example that kind of like there are cars that are, lemons and jalopies all the way up to Rolls Royces. I think that if you look at the scope of manufactured homes, I think you'll see that same range exists there as well. So, I admit I didn't have that information handy at the time, but I think I can speak for people on the board in this one instance to say that I think everybody tries to do their homework and keep up with the information that we're trying to process when we're talking about zoning amendments.
So you think it's actually good that this change allows, and manufactured homes and mobile homes are one and the same per HUD and per New Hampshire house?
Correct, and we already allow them to be clear.
Right, but of course the circumstances are very different. If somebody wants to put in a mobile home, they have to buy the property, they've got the whole thing. Here, we're allowing people to potentially add it to be a revenue-generating vehicle for, it could be an Airbnb. We know we can't, prevent people from renting it out on a short-term basis. I know it says 3 months, but we have been saying, everybody's been very open about it's not enforceable. So this is a whole new can of worms by allowing this and allowing people to potentially have short-term rentals right in their next-door neighbor's property.
Do you want to?
I'm not sure why you'd say it's not enforceable, Rich. We already have enforced things that we have found on Airbnb. For example, an Airbnb was renting it out as a wedding venue, and we already enforced that can't be happening. Between myself and Cara, we keep pretty close tabs on what's on the short-term rental listing websites. Obviously we don't necessarily have a short-term rental specific regulation right now to enforce, but there are components there that are not allowed. Just like, we keep tabs on what's on the housing market so we can see if, some things have been improved without building permits and those sorts of things. So I'm not sure why it is that you would say that's not enforceable. But then I also just want to touch on, I can appreciate that that perhaps you're not trying to point a finger. However, I will say, please recognize that, I'm human and this is a pretty substantial book and there's a lot of literature that goes around and it is virtually impossible for me to know everything. Manufactured homes, truthfully, not something that we really deal with in New London because they are not a chosen style of of the folks who have developed here. I can tell you in the 7 years I've been here, I have never once had a phone call asking about installing a mobile home. I have had phone calls asking about tiny homes, which have generally not been built to the HUD manufactured home standard and code. They actually fall into the RV class of tiny homes. Obviously, tiny home is sort of ubiquitous, and there's stick-built tiny homes and all sorts of other options. But I will say, I'm sorry that I answered this correctly. Obviously, I would have liked to avoid this situation and the back and forth over the last month. As upset as you may be that this happened, it's stressful on our side too. And so, I guess you have my apology. I hope that we can move on from it.
And no apology needed if, I, kind of brought up that topic specifically, but I mean, I'm amazed how often you are knowledgeable about so much. But nobody's perfect, and where I come from, they'd call it a single point of failure. You don't rely on just one person being the shell landsman for everything. That's why, to some degree, I'm pointing out that it shouldn't be just to go to you for these things that are very impactful to the community.
Yeah, and I think in communities where you're large enough that you can have a whole planning staff, that's great. Obviously, we can't have a full planning staff where we have, a team. We're lucky that our town administrator is very knowledgeable in the area of planning and land use because of her law background, and so that is an asset to me, and, by virtue of me to this board and you as residents, but, it is sometimes a limitation of, the volunteers that are on this board, they rely on me. That is why I'm here, is to help them through. And, obviously they are then only as good as I am. And so, yes, this is a time where, I was not correct. And I think to Tim's point, there may be a difference between what the law allows and what this board chose to exercise of the law allowing.
Yep.
And so there's always going to be, that balance there from what, a board can limit and what they choose to propose to limit.
Okay. So I also point out, I guess it's not actually a function of the planning board per se, but the description of the amendment, you cannot tell that because we know most people, that's the only thing they're going to see is what is written on the ballot. But you cannot tell that we currently have attached ADUs, and with the change that's going to occur is now newly allowing detached ADUs. It is impossible to decipher that from the written ballot question.
And I think, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I guess I somewhat disagree. Kim and I discussed this at length before the ballot was submitted to the town clerk. Obviously, when we started this process this year, what the planning board was proposing was to have an and there, to have an attached and a detached. And through the public hearing process, they decided not to include that. And I felt it was important to make sure that the ballot question, the ballot description, showed that it was a attached or a detached. And I don't think the ballot is printed. We're not going to change that, and I have copies somewhere. And I'm not sure that we are going to necessarily come to an agreement on this. So
I'm bringing it up now. I know you can't change it.
Right. Maybe for the benefit of the planning board, can I read?
Sure. Yes. Thank you.
So I think you've all seen how zoning amendments are on there. Are you in favor of item this? And then the description reads, the planning board proposes to amend Article 2, General Provisions, Section 18, Accessory Dwelling Unit, and add a definition of short-term rental to Article 3 definitions. The proposed amendment seeks to modify the accessory dwelling unit ordinance with changes that include, but are not limited to, allowing a maximum of 3 bedrooms, up to 1,250 square feet of interior living space, and allowing either an attached or a detached accessory dwelling unit on each property. And so the point there was to demonstrate that it is not both an attached or a detached, because I think with the publicity that was around this in the beginning of this process, there may be people going into the voting booth thinking that it is still an attached and a detached, because that was on the table at one point. And so our perspective was that it's important to say this is an either or scenario, because that is a change.
I'm not saying that the statement is incorrect. I'm saying the complete statement does not show that the change that's happening is adding the ability to have a detached ADU. I'm not saying the statement is correct.
It seems like, Rich, if anything, it would make, if you're opposed to the proposed change of allowing detached ADUs, the way it's worded now in a sort of a summary form would actually make our case harder as a board in terms of, because many people may not know that attached ADUs are already allowed.
True.
So if you're against them in general, or if you're against detached and you just sort of want the whole thing to go away, then I think that this wording actually works in your favor. I think the idea of why they did it, and Adam, jump in, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is, again, to sort of show in totality what the net effect would be. But I actually don't think that this is in any way skewing the intent of what is happening.
Okay, I totally don't understand. Well, I guess I don't want to beat it to death, but I don't at all see it that way. And everybody I talk to sees it the way I saw it.
So you see it, not to belabor it for too long, but you think that the way it's written is somehow making it that the fact that detached is not currently allowed, it somehow makes it more palatable for voters?
The fact that they can't see that now there's a big difference by that we're now changing it so that detached ADUs is an option that they didn't previously have, that would be a significant, at least potentially a significant thing that they should think about when they vote.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know what to say other than if they don't choose to go beyond that, then, it's unfortunate, I suppose, but I think it's a fair summary of the net effect of what the amendment would do.
I guess, and maybe in terms of process, is there any reason why it isn't actually the planning board when because it's an open discussion just like this, that's when the ballot question gets written, so you could get feedback during that process on whether or not the ballot question is worded appropriately.
Could I just?
Yeah.
Not to belabor things, but going back to 2015, when the planning board approved attached ADUs, it's 9 years. Most people might know that. But in 2019, we circulated a questionnaire to everybody in town that talked about attached ADUs and talked about detached ADUs and about the need not only for those things, but for many other ways to attempt the need of more housing. And many people were very interested in that. I don't know if they understood it or not. In light of that, the selectmen appointed and gathered volunteers to be on the Housing Commission that had, I don't know how many, but maybe 30 meetings, noticed and open to the public, where they discussed this and many, many other things. In the fall,
I'm one of the people who do attend those meetings, and this issue about mobile manufactured homes never came up.
You could have brought it up, we could have brought it up, whatever. I don't understand that, but throughout the summer, the drafting went on in joint meetings, in separate meetings with them first, and then joint meetings with the planning board. All open meetings, all on video and when we had video. And as a last step in that process were the normal legislative meetings. Okay. I agree with Jeremy, or with Tim, I guess, who said, this is not a big change. Hopefully we're going to propose many more changes that will be effective in trying to address the problem that most people in the town are fully aware of and in favor of addressing, of providing more diverse housing. Okay? If you don't like detached, keep coming to the meetings. Maybe we'll find something that you like. We'd love the input at those stages where those things are going on, when everybody is reading up and the consultants are there and the people that have done these things in other towns are there. And we can be more effective than arguing to a small audience about some misstatement, and that you didn't like the way that it's on the ballot. You know, it's been a long process.
So you bring up the survey in 2019, but of course that put manufactured mobile homes so far undesirable. And also, when they talk about diversity, I think what's behind most people, they're thinking about, you know, workforce housing and elderly care, elderly
See,
housing.
that's one of the
So-
problems, Rich, is people have to be much more open-minded. As, for example, as someone my age can move out of a larger home and stay on my property. That's going to open up my larger home. The people that buy that are going to move out of a smaller home. It's the way to approach this problem is not necessarily with a shotgun down the middle of the house. And we're struggling with that. Everybody's trying to struggle. If you do read about it all over the state, but all over the country, people are struggling with this same problem. But it doesn't have to do necessarily with manufactured homes or mobile homes.
It's also, I mean,
trying to get these satisfied. We voted for it. You didn't like it.
And you bring up, you know, other areas. Of course, one of the major issues is density, and we're fourth highest density in the region of 25 municipalities. That puts us way, way up there. If you average out the 25 municipalities, you come up to about 44, on average, 44 units per square mile. We're at 101. We're way more than twice the density of the average in the region. So people are concerned about all these zoning changes that have occurred in the past few years, and now the ones that are occurring now, and trying to figure out how to even put more houses by ADUs into every little nook and cranny is concerning to people.
Yep, thanks. Rich, I think Renee would like to make a comment. It sounds like also, I would just say that, again, our assessment has been all along that if we do allow detached ADUs, that there will be some infill, but we're not going to see them. I think no one would reasonably argue that we're going to see them on every property. It's not allowed in all the zones. It's not feasible in all the zones. They can be wildly expensive, and some properties just wouldn't support it. So I mean, I hear your point that we're going to see potentially more density, which personally I think density in general is an asset, and that's why New London is what it is. But I don't think we're going to see them on every property, to be clear.
Hi, thanks. Renee Thiel, Housing Navigator with UVLS RPC. So quickly, yes, I did a presentation last week to the New Hampshire Housing Convening about the towns that I'm working in, and I actually dubbed New London as the land of amenities. I kind of gave each town a little thing, and I think New London has great amenities, which is why you find the density there as well. I'm curious, when you say region, do you mean the RPC region, like our 25 communities plus, or did that include some Merrimack lines, or?
So
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So all I did was email New Hampshire Housing that sent me to the Office of Planning and Development, and they sent me a spreadsheet, and I think our region was called the Sunapee.
That's okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just curious. But the other thing I just want to touch on real quick is, and I will echo the sentiment of being at all the Housing Commission meetings. He has been. I've been there too some nights, and during the weeks we see each other 3 or 4 nights, depending on meetings. So it's been great having that active participant. I believe, and I don't want to speak for the Housing Commission, I'll speak as the Housing Navigator who attended those meetings. A lot of the stuff with the detached ADUs talk and conversation, and kind of as they were working through it, was allowing what's currently allowed and in place to also mimic and impact the ADUs. So where, as Tim mentioned, where manufactured housing is currently allowed, to just let it fall under that umbrella, if you will. And I think that's kind of where the Housing Commission kind of took a lot of their kind of thought process. Like, for example, like the, you can, by statute, and it was discussed in meetings, limit how close in proximity they are. The Housing Commission did touch on that, but some of the other defining ones, including the manufactured, they were just falling under the realm of kind of what's allowed and not restricting further. So that's just my surmise. I don't want to speak for the Housing Commission as a whole either, but I believe in some of the conversations that came out of that, that's kind of where it fell, was just kind of, if it's allowed in that state, then we can kind of inclusive in that as well. So that helps.
Can I ask you a question on what you presented most recently? There was one question, I think you were asked to actually check on it further, but that, because many people, when they are wanting these changes, it's because of workforce housing, right? And you had, one of your survey questions was about talking to the companies that are in New London, where their employees come from, and the answer was they're not from New London, and not even from adjacent towns from New London. They're from more remote. So, everybody, when they kind of push these things, they're pushing it on trying to solve this problem to get, employees be able to live in New London, but the reality is they're not even close.
Yes. Correct. A large majority were traveling away. It doesn't mean, I would hesitate to say it means that they don't want to live closer to work if there is available housing in their affordable bracket, whatever that may be. So I'd just be hesitant to say just because they live maybe 2+3 towns away, they might want to live closer, so they don't have to have that transportation additional cost in their yearly budget. So it was more just a question mechanism to see, a large part of the workforce housing conversations too have stemmed from, allowing employees who serve you and serve the town to be able to live in the town and to not require, okay, just because you work here, it needs, we don't have enough housing. So it's really kind of trying to be that inclusive and say, if you work here and you want to live closer, what can we do to provide the housing for those who do work in our town and serve us in many different fashions. So I'd just be hesitant on a little bit of mixing that, but that's all.
I just want to add too that I think it's important that we keep a wider regional perspective on this too, that one, people change jobs much more frequently than they change their housing. And so I think though most people probably covet a short commute, being able to stay in a region is just as important as staying in the same town that you work in. And similarly, I would hope that if you end up in, Dartmouth Hitchcock or the VA Medical Center or wherever you're getting your next level health care other than New London Hospital, that they have the health professionals on staff to take care of you, and that the cities of Lebanon and the town of Hartford are not solely responsible for providing all of the housing for those employees. I think, obviously we all have a wide range of what we want in housing and what we want in a community, and so, it's going to take all of the towns in our region and our state to allow for some new development and some change to be accommodated. No one town should have to shoulder all of the burden. I certainly agree with that. Obviously, we're here in New London and we can't really control what each other independent community does. But I do think it's important to keep a regional perspective on things. We are doing. You're all doing your part in a small part of the region.
So, I think I am keeping a regional view, and I would think and maybe we all wish the state actually was a little bit more proactive to start figuring out, okay, where are the less dense areas that make sense to add the density, where these other towns, they would then hopefully get the revenue from having this housing built in their towns versus us, who are supposedly a rich town. that's, I think, a more regional way of looking at things. And you talk about people, I think the nurse example keeps coming up. And yeah, I mean, when people change jobs, I can easily see somebody a nurse gets a job at the local hospital here, but 6 months later they get a promotion to work in Lebanon, and here we got they're commuting to Lebanon and using up a New London spot. So I look at it as completely different when it comes to a regional perspective.
Yep, and I appreciate that, Rich, and I hear your point about, making sure the board doesn't lean too much on Adam, so we all try to learn, and none of us are, Jeremy, of course, is trained in this, but the rest of us are not, and so, we do our best to try to learn what we can, and through the experience of being on the board and through the reading that we do, but absolutely, I hear your point. We could always learn more and always be better, so we'll continue to try to do that. And then I think... Yeah, and just to clarify, because I thought about when I said manufactured homes, I'm not saying that they're an unalloyed good. I'm just saying that they can be a good thing, and so I just want to be. There's a distinction there that I'm not saying that I'm just in favor of all of them. And to your point about property owners who would want to put, say, a mobile home on their property, I would argue maybe somebody would want to do that. I think a lot of people probably wouldn't want to do that because they wouldn't maybe appreciate the aesthetics of that, or they wouldn't want the intrusion of having someone that close. But again, that's something that we think, the board thinks that at least it just doesn't come up, as Adam said, so we'll see what we can do with this proposed amendment, and hopefully that, allowing a few more detached ADUs will help a little bit with the housing diversity that we believe that the town needs. So that's kind of our stance.
I have to thank all of you so much for allowing such a lengthy discussion at the very tail end of this meeting. So thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
So the next meeting is March 26th. I will not be joining you that night. I'm going to see my nephews and my sister and her family for a few days, and I fly back that afternoon. So it is unlikely that I'm going to make it from Connecticut to New London by 6:30. So Kim will be here with you. I will see you at the site visit on the 7th, and we will bring Kim along for that so that she hears, everything ahead of the meeting. And other than that, don't forget that Election Day voting is here 7 to 7. I think many of you volunteer, so you'll probably be here for a portion anyways. And then town meeting is Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. It's late, right? Yeah, 7 o'clock at the gymnasium. So this is your sort of annual appeal and your annual time to be heard. Election Day, you will vote on offices and zoning amendments. On town meeting night, you will vote on all of the money-related warrant items, and then are there any other don't use plastic bag warrants or anything like that this year? No, okay. None of the other non-money related warrants this year. So I think that's all from the town office.
Jeremy wanted to add one thing.
I just wanted to jump in and say thank you, Adam, for many years. I don't know if everybody knows, but tonight was going to be my last meeting, but the next meeting will be my last meeting on the board. So since Adam's not going to be there, I won't be able to thank him, and I want to thank him tonight while he's here.
Here.
Yep. It's been a lot of years, and I think 3 or 4 people have been in that position, and Adam is by far the best. And not only that, I kind of look back and have, in 16 years, been in over 30 different towns on the professional side of things, going before boards, and I have not run into anybody like Adam, in a good way. He's incredibly knowledgeable, and he's friendly. So I just wanted to thank Adam while he's here tonight.
He's got a beard, too.
Well, I will echo that, Jeremy.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that, but also, I don't know, especially thinking back to for those of you who are on the board, when we amended the Article 20, legal nonconforming and uses and structures, it is probably the most legally sensitive portion of the zoning ordinance. If you were on the zoning ordinance or on the planning board, then this was just before COVID, I believe. I think it was like 2019. And Jeremy was like Rain Man. If you remember, our Article 20 before that was like, I think 7 pages or something. I mean, it was something over the top. It was impossible to read. Residents couldn't read it and understand what they could or couldn't do with their legally non-conforming structures or uses, and we simplified it. Essentially, in the end, it said the exact same thing that it did, other than it allowed for voluntary replacement of structures, because we were seeing things reach their life expectancy in the waterfront buffer and such. But his detail-orientedness on that was second to none, and I'm not sure what we will do if we have to cross another rewrite like that. We might be hiring a consultant from Bonin Architecture, and it was truly helpful. And having a design professional on the board is, certainly something not to be taken for granted. Our